Many of us tend to think about change as something that we see on the page. It's the set of instructions that take us from here to there, from point A to point B. But change is not defined by what's on the page. A change is really defined by the degree to which your customers, your employees, and your suppliers are willing and able to bring it to life. And the reason that the change curve and the grief curve are one and the same is because change, even a change that we're bought into, a change that we're excited about, every change involves grieving and ending. It is an ending of what used to be, an ending of the old ways. Your job is not to help people skip over this curve or jump past it, because going through it is a very natural part of experiencing change. What I do want you to ask yourself is, how can I think about where my people are on this curve and how can I support them in that? Maybe they need a little bit of clarity or certainty around something. Maybe the instructions are unclear. Maybe they need a tool or some training or some support. Why can't I just write out a set of instructions and hand them to my teams? What does change leadership really look like, and what makes it so important? Now, you don't need to have children of your own to recognize that Back to School 2020 has presented the world, and certainly the country, with a very real case study in significant change. But here's what he did. In the middle of June, he hosted an open meeting that all parents and teachers on the east side of town were invited to attend. And at that time, he said, listen, I'm not going to have a lot more information from the administration until the middle of August. As soon as I have the information, you'll have the information. But in the meantime, what I want everybody to know and to believe and to understand is that whatever the decisions are, all of it will be decided and implemented in service of our being able to create a safe space for our kids where they can be healthy, where they can be connected, where they can learn and they can thrive. That is the vision that I have of what school will look like, whatever the details. But I'm going to stand up a committee as of right now, and I'm going to invite a couple of parents and a couple of teachers to sit on that committee. And we are going to meet as a group every 2 weeks because I want to hear from you about what your questions are, what your concerns are, what your wants are, even what your ideas are. What this principal did was he essentially opened up a dialogue and he kept it ongoing so that throughout the course of the summer, even when he had nothing new to say, he was able to stay connected with his stakeholders. He knew what was on our minds, what we were concerned about, what we wanted to know. So by the time mid-August came, he was able to communicate that in a way that felt resonant and impactful. We, as parents and teachers, were able to receive all of his guidelines and his rules and his policies because, A, we understood that all of it was in service of his vision of creating this safe space. He was able to communicate in a way that addressed our questions and concerns because he had heard them. And he also was able to really engage us in the process. As he rolled out his rules and policies, he had his committee in place and he was able to test ideas. It was a really collaborative process. I didn't feel a victim of this change. I felt a participant of it. I felt like I had an opportunity to be a part of it. I felt confident. I felt informed. Now, it wasn't perfect because it's 2020 and nothing has been perfect in 2020. But within reason, it was smooth. It went well. People understood what they needed to do, why they needed to do it, and where there were questions, concerns, or anxieties, we knew where to bring them. Wait a minute. What does this have to do with business? Right? This is a story of school, and we're running a business. So, how does this resonate for us? I want you to imagine that Back to School 2020 is a hot new product that just hit the market. Each of these schools is a company. Each principal, a CEO, and each set of parents are your employees, and the students are your customers. Which set of these employees would you want selling this product to your customers? Which CEO do you want leading that change? As you envision these parents selling back to school to their customers, their students, Do you want these employees that are confused and overwhelmed and unclear trying to sell your product to these customers? Or do you want the parents, the employees who are bought in? They see the vision, they get it, they're excited about it, they understand the rationale behind the rules and the policies. Who do you want selling this product? I know the answer. I think you do too. And I hope that you're asking yourself the next logical question, which is, okay, I'm here and I'm ready and I want to do it well. So, how do I do it? How can you help me? And here is where we get into the meat of the session. And what I'm going to do is introduce you to a very simple 3-part framework that I like to use. It is simple in that it is intuitive and it is clear, but that doesn't mean that it's easy. It takes commitment and it takes work on your part. But what I'm going to do is introduce the 3 pieces of this framework, and then I'm going to take a bit of a deeper dive into each one and share a tool with you that you can pick up and put to use immediately. So here are the 3 phases of this change framework, and it begins with the idea of initiating. This is where you have the opportunity to paint that picture 10,000 feet ahead. This is where you get to create that sense of excitement and enthusiasm and buy-in. The next phase is called engage, and this is where you take that beautiful vision that you've painted and you start to connect with your teams. And this is where you lean into dialogue, and this is where you bring your teams into the fold of the change. You don't wait until the end. You bring them in before things are fully baked, and this way they are part of the conversation with you. This is where you get their buy-in, their championship, and their sponsorship, and also their questions, their contributions, and their ideas. The third piece of the framework is all about sustaining. This is as we move into implementation, what are you doing to stay connected to the change? How are you monitoring progress? How are you finding your wins and celebrating them? How are you finding places where things are maybe going off course a little bit and taking that opportunity to course correct now rather than wait until there's a deep crack in the foundation? Why change is important, why it's hard, and why we have to invest in doing it well as leaders. You've got to build a compelling vision that people cannot help but want to support you in achieving. You've got to connect with hearts and minds. Don't go straight to the instructions. Don't go straight to the rules, policies, and procedures. Give some thought to what do they need to hear and what do they need to feel in order to be bought in. And finally, you've got to celebrate. You've got to find your wins and you've got to stay connected to this change as you go.